And we know what Jesus was when he was a man on earth. What was his profession? Was he a doctor?
Carpenter.
He was a heavenly doctor, but what was Jesus' work?
Carpenter.
But that's his heaven. But when he was a man on earth,
Panday to si Lord
he was
Jesus.
a Jesus
Panday to
was
siya.
a carpenter. Because we know Jesus is the foundation. Jesus is the foundation. But also the builder. Without us, without the carpenters, the workers, there's no building. Without Jesus, there's no building, heavenly building for us. And then once though I became, and Jesus came in, and it's like, oh, Jesus, please forgive me for my sins. I could feel right away, boom, that God coming in me. And so it's no longer me. I feel me in there because I'd rather go steal a chicken and have a dinner. I would rather. Welcome, everybody. Wow, that went fast, but I was ready this time. But I don't have to tell you that. You'll just think I'm professional, not scrambling around for getting myself onto the screen. Just excited to be here with everybody. And I know this is late. Went to a birthday party, brought my son to a little friend he's known from church, who moved away. His dad is now a pastor at another church, which is awesome. He helps out not just pastoring the church, but at-risk youth. And what a great thing for a person to do, that dealing with people that are falling through the cracks, people in society that for one reason or another, strayed from what we would say is a position of strength as a human being, that they cannot take care of their children, the come wards of the state. And so you have some very open-hearted people that will take care of these and give them a hope for eternal joy, which they're not dealing with in their young little lives. But start out today. Again, I want to start with a scripture. I'm a little laggy again. Always just so many windows, so much cool stuff. And what we want to add is this. I'll get this up there. It's our scripture verse, and I just keep going back to this. If you saw any of my links to my home church, the pastor is doing a sermon on Romans. And so this was a couple weeks ago, but it just such a warning. And again, something that is something that we can look at without bias and to see if we agree or not. But this is why what we do as Christians who love people, this is why I do it, is because this is the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 19. It's starting, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them. For God has showed it unto them. For the visible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead. So they are without excuse. Because that, and it's not scrolling. See, I told you I'm lagging. Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were they thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish hearts were darkened. I get in trouble for this next one because I usually go to the Old Testament, but this is New Testament. Apostle Paul, confessing themselves to be wise, they became fools. They changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into images made like to corruptible man. What are our idols? So many idols. We worship power. We worship people who would roll over us, sports, high business corporations, and all these type of things. And so we're going to go into that today. But this is why I warn you, because I believe this is totally true. And how can we determine this? By a scientific means. Excuse me. How can we do that? Can we do that? And let's see. That's what I'm going to talk to today, because what we know is that through our complex brains, we can determine stuff. We can figure stuff out. There's cold case kind of crime solving. There is things in science. We can look into the past. And as a designer, though, and where I focus on design, is that we can determine what is design, not just what appears to be design, but what had to have been actually intelligently designed. And then this is what I'm giving the case. And then you, as the audience, can determine for yourselves. And then if there is no God, then who cares? I'm having fun, you or whatever, but we're all headed to the grave. We're headed to compost pile, where our atoms will just go back into nature. But let's see what these atoms do. Let's see what these functions, mechanisms do. And let's see this one. So we all know, and it could have been argued in Darwin's day, that there's nothing really complex. Life itself, looked like a bunch of jelly. But check this one out. Let me see. I'm going to make sure volume this time so we're not in silence, because I don't have my backup on my phone. But we're going to check this out, and I think this was awesome. So this is our little DNA strands, and then we think, we all agree it's complex, but some would think, well, this is coming about by chance mutations worked on by natural selection. But check this out. This is the original origin of life, recycling and repair of the DNA. Let's add it. Since I didn't do it.
Oxygen, even water, are extremely dangerous for your
We'll start it
DNA. And that's not even to
over.
mention the
Okay.
actually scary sounding things like ionizing radiation, gamma rays, alkylation, chemical mutagens. Your DNA is under constant threat from things you would never suspect being dangerous, like sunlight, oxygen, even water, are extremely dangerous for your DNA. And that's not even to mention the actually scary sounding things like ionizing radiation, gamma rays, alkylation, chemical mutagens, and other pathogens. Every day, your DNA experiences 10,000 lost single letters of code, and 10,000 cases of damage by oxidation, and 55,000 single strand breaks, as well as 10 of the extremely bad double strand breaks. All of these happen every day in just one of your cells. Just one! Multiply that by the trillions of cells in your body, and and I can't emphasize this enough, how in the actual world can we still be alive with our cells basically burning to the ground every second of every day? Great question.
Now we're going to imagine here that you've got a ladder. You've got, well, they're doing a burning cell, but a burning building, and you got the ladder truck going up to save the people, and it's part broken. Actually, not just individual rings are, the steps are broken, but big chunks are taken out of it. And that's just a simple mechanical device that humans have made. But look at the DNA, which is chemically bonded together. There's the school of thought that evidence that the cause could have been just chance mutations. And that before that, with the abiogenesis, that the chemicals just by chance, because there's nothing that, as you'll see with the repair, there's nothing that makes the little base pairs connect specifically. And then you have trillions of them that have to be. So check this out. This is awesome stuff.
Good news, bad news situation. Your body is like a library of information that's constantly on fire. Luckily, your library has an army of librarians who work tirelessly to search the library, extinguish the flames, and actually rewrite the missing information with extreme accuracy. As fast as the environment burns down your DNA, your body's defenses rebuild it. Without these incredible systems of damage recognition and repair, people couldn't exist. No life could exist, not even the lowly fungus or bacteria. This ability is essential for life, even the very first living organism. Otherwise, life could have never started. And it's actually unfair to compare our body's repair mechanisms to librarians, because librarians usually have eyes to be able to sense problems and brains to solve them and hands to carry out those plans. Your cells need to be able to recognize and fix these quadrillions of problems autonomously, without a single thought or even any help from the Dewey Decimal System. Amazing. But
again, I've had people argue with me that's like, oh, well, this one thing could happen. A lot of smart people tell us this just happened. So let's look into the more complex. As a designer, I'm going to look at this cell, but as a designer, I got to, well, what if I wanted a different cell? I've got to, in the big picture, pretty well know how they're all working. So you look at this, and inside of a cell of the, let's say, in a caterpillar, butterfly, they have all the genetic material to go through different body parts. Metamorphosis that goes from the egg, maybe lives in water in the case of a dragonfly, and then the adult going out, things with different digestion, different things. And how do we do this? How does that cell, how does the DNA inside those living organisms know what to do, when to do it? Why did they don't know why to do it? We know why they do it, because that's how they survive. That's how they have to survive. So science goes, well, that's because that's how they survive. It's survival of the fittest. That doesn't tell us how it works, how it came about, how we can recreate it, how we can backwards engineer it. So yeah, this is more than, and you got to see the total of the cells, the total of the complexity, because our brains can like, oh yeah, this can happen. Look at a cell can have a little smiley face on it, no problem. But there has to be instructions. There has to be things to get this going. So if we're going to create something like these little cells, we have to code it with a brain like in a computer. It is the where it generates the different material. So you guys, if you do not believe in a God, this is why I would say you don't have, in Romans kind of shows that it's really right on, because you've got to have a great imagination to see what the rest of this just one video, and we have thousands of them on different life forms, different codes, different information, different body styles, and you are going to have to give reasons why a chance mutation can do any of this, let alone the trillions of chance mutations that had to really contribute. Let's keep going.
But how can a molecule, something with no mind, do something as complex as sensing and repairing? It's easy enough to imagine a molecule doing something simple like bumping into another molecule. That's just chemistry. Easy as a rock rolling downhill. And I can understand how a scientist can sense things or modify things. But how can molecules know how a thing is supposed to be? How can they notice when it isn't that way? And how can they do anything to fix it and not make it worse? Imagine a glass of water detecting something wrong with a novel. It can't. It's just molecules. They can't read. They have no knowledge of what a novel is or what it's supposed to say, much less what to do about it if it could spot an error. It'll just sit there, being water. But inside of you, there are molecules that can detect errors in your DNA and much more. You can't live without several different repair mechanisms. We've only got time to cover one of the many systems, and the simplest one at that. Here's how it works. The simplest DNA repair mechanism of many is intimidatingly called base excision repair. Fixes a single damaged letter of DNA, and it's needed in every known form of life. If you had a damaged strand of DNA, first, one machine or protein enzyme scans down it and recognizes the single damaged letter. It would detach it from the DNA backbone, extracting it like an old, dirty tooth, leaving the functioning letters alone. Next, another machine detects the empty spot and breaks a single strand of the DNA backbone. A third machine then snips the DNA backbone again, removing the segment of backbone that's empty. These two enzymes have the ability to break the DNA backbone at will. Lucky ducky you, they only do this when needed, and at a specific site of damage. How could enzymes like this just pop up at the start of life without first destroying all of the DNA in sight? A question for the ages. A fourth machine then inserts the replacement part, an intact matching letter of DNA, complete with a new backbone segment. Finally, a fifth machine welds the replacement part to the backbone on both sides, completing the restoration. This is all oversimplified baby talk, of course. The actual mechanics of these things is far beyond what we can convey here. But all this madness is happening every day in every single one of these tiny little danger hot dogs, also known as bacteria. If your reaction to all of this isn't, what? Then you're just not paying attention. This is literal submicroscopic surgery with the added monkey wrench of the cell does not stop operating while it's being repaired. Imagine trying to repair a Jeep while it's still running.
Hello, Mark Barden here from Sandy Hook.
So as we can see there, we are totally, and get rid of this thing. We are totally having problems here. If we look at just what we're doing here, the dirty little secret is that the dirty secret is that DNA we watched has the information to create those proteins that are actually little, we call them like machines that are fixing broken DNA. So how does the DNA, how is it able to have the information? It is real live blueprint information. If we had the technology, and we're getting better and better, we know exactly the part of the DNA that does pretty much different things. And we can say, and there was one that I watched was, which disease is it? I think it was sickle cell anemia. It was just one little part of the DNA that had a bad mutation, bad something in it that caused sickle cell anemia. So you can see that means it is information because we can actually identify what is wrong. So you see guys, this is just straight evidence. This it's a cute little video, but there's other ones explaining it from atheist biologist, theistic biologist, deep time, short creation time. So people all have this same information. This is pretty well accurate, we all think. But how do we come to conclusions of this? So let's keep going. What is the best cause of this we are seeing?
Is just one of the many DNA repair pathways, and not even the most complicated one. Even the simplest organisms absolutely need repair mechanisms. The first life and all life needs repair at the very beginning. In bacteria, the instructions to make these 5 enzymes are coded in DNA, requiring more than 8,000 letters of information. If you're smart, you'd notice, just like the scientist Manfred Eigen, that this is a huge paradox. That much DNA could have never accumulated unless it was first protected by repair mechanisms. But the repair mechanisms themselves require at least this much DNA. This sort of thing is kind of like taking kids hiking in nature. You could probably bring a few of them without losing any. But if you had to bring 8,000 kids on a hike, things get a bit more dicey. No, Joseph! Don't touch that! Frozen! Without some system to track them and keep them from wandering away, guaranteed to lose some of them. And so it is with life. Without a repair mechanism, only a small handful of rungs of DNA could be accumulated before...
Yeah, guys, now put on your non-biased little hats. Now getting into the design, how was this? Because it, at the very least, as Richard Dawkins says, appears designed for a purpose. No scientific evidence that it wasn't designed for a purpose, but his bias is that you cannot have a creator, you can't have a designer. An intelligent design is not the simplest. So look at this stuff. Look at the DNA, and this is pretty close to what I've seen on the actual other science sites, and we know it as this structure, the double helix. So you got to think of this information has to produce proteins to correct it, to repair it, to keep it going in the simplest of organizations and organisms. Yet, how did it stay pristine before the DNA created it. You've got the chicken and the egg problem on steroids. This is crazy stuff.
Information started getting irreparably lost and a death spiral began. But some people say life started simpler. RNA stored information long before DNA existed. Don't you know that? This would only make the problem worse, because RNA is so fragile and so easily damaged compared to DNA. And we know that life requires many RNA repair mechanisms that we haven't even touched upon, so that doesn't work. And on top of that, there's even more problems that can pop up in your cells outside of DNA that need to be fixed also. Remember, the cell is more than just a library. It's also a factory. And sometimes its manufacturing machines break or produce defective merchandise. So, cells need to first identify an undesired or broken molecule, and then they can either fix it, recycle it for parts, or transport the junk to an ejection hatch in the cell for disposal. Here's just one example. The central manufacturing machine inside of you is called the ribosome. It takes the instructions in your DNA and RNA and follows them to build nanomachines. It's the factory or assembly line of the cell. And each cell can have anywhere from around 10,000 to many millions of ribosomes building things all at once. To read the instructions in RNA, it is threaded through the ribosome like a train through a tunnel. But sometimes the process goes wrong. The RNA train can get stuck inside the ribosome tunnel before the thing it's building is finished. A bit like constipation.
Deadly constipation.
And there's no laxative on a prebiotic Earth that can fix this problem. And it turns out it's a quite common problem in all life. Here's just one of your cells. Your body has trillions of them just like this. And as you grow, it'll need to replicate itself. Ribosomes to the rescue. That's just the sort of thing it does. But ribosomal constipation is so common that before this cell could make a single copy of itself, every one of its tens of thousands of ribosomes will get clogged up 5 times over. So, life requires a way to detect and fix this kind of thing as well. Floating around inside of the cell of all living things are machines that spot errors and label bad molecules, demolition machines, and recycling machines, among others. Fun fact, 1 in 20 machines in your body are actually for destroying the other 19. That's comforting. This machine can recognize when a ribosome is stuck, so it sticks a label on the half-finished protein called a degron. Then the unfinished protein needs to be chopped up for parts. Luckily, your body has little molecular chainsaws that love to chop up proteins. But hang on a second. Isn't it a bit dangerous to have protein chainsaws floating around inside of you? What if they chop up some useful thing? Wouldn't you know it? They're programmed to only chop up things labeled with a degron. Proteins that destroy other proteins are essential for life. Don't worry, you're safe.
For now.
And then, the defective RNA has to be chopped up too, since if it's let free, it'll just keep clogging up other ribosomes. So a different label is applied to the mRNA, and different chainsaws jump into action. Hang on, why not just use the same machines? That seems sort of wasteful. Good question. Sort of like recycling paper is a different process than recycling aluminum, different molecular machines are needed to recycle different biological parts. Maybe so, but some people will object that life started simpler, without all of this fancy stuff. Okay, ribosomes are admittedly fancy. And yet, as fancy as they are, they sometimes goof and make a mistake. If we're going to imagine that earlier life had something simpler than a ribosome, something more crude, less fancy, it would only be more prone to make errors and produce more junk. This would make the problem worse and not better. The need to recognize and repair things would only increase the simpler life got. Life could never have started without sophisticated recognition, recycling, and repair mechanisms. If they weren't sophisticated at the start, they would have caused more damage than good. They have to detect exactly what needs to be fixed and repair only those molecules. But obtaining these sophisticated molecular machines would require more information than can possibly be accumulated or maintained in the absence of those very repair mechanisms. DNA was designed with the expectation that errors would happen, as well as the foresight to be able to be fixed. Blind forces like Darwinian evolution have no expectations. They have no foresight. Only intelligent beings do. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so we know at the end there, it was giving us the cause defined that they, as creationists, would believe. And when we're doing that, so but the rest of it is just evidence, and so that was their conclusion, my conclusion too, because the simplest cause in science should be the most acceptable, whatever takes the least amount. And I know one of the horsemen of atheism said that, well, you have to imagine what created God, and then what created that God, and what created and keep on into eternity. And therefore, believing that everything came without an intelligent designer is the simpler explanation. That is not used anymore because that was pretty silly, in that we're talking about what created time, space, and matter. Therefore, we know what created time, space, and matter. Okay, as what brought time, space, and matter into existence couldn't have been time, space, and matter, because otherwise, whatever it is creating itself. So the two explanations is that it was designed outside of time, space, and matter, created, designed, brought into existence, or it happened by a chance process, because nobody believes that it had to come into existence the way it did. The force, the amount of energy, all that stuff takes a incredible amount of specified accuracy to happen to get to where we are today. And so therefore, and I again with Romans, and if there's no God, we're all good, or we're all going to be bad. It's darkness, it's compost pile outside of existence. I know in myself, I looked into that darkness and I was like, that doesn't seem like reality. There's something inside me that says that this is going to go on. And then that's where then I started looking into things, because I was a good guy. I've been called a Pollyanna, which is, a little goody two shoes person, because I tried to be nice. I tried to live a good life, tried not to hurt people. I failed, though. I fell short. And then this gospel that God would forgive my sins, read that, did it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had an overwhelming force, presence, however you want to define it, start to take me over. And so, but that is predicted in the Bible, is that if somebody calls on the name of the Lord, they will be saved. Saved from what? Saved from the imperfection that we are in. So as we get going, that is a novel prediction in the Bible. I always use that as fun, because everybody always throws that in my face. Well, you got to have peer-reviewed papers. You got to have some person who has a bias, like a Richard Dawkins, write a paper and have a bunch of people that agree with them okay it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm too much of a rebel. I know myself, and I was a good guy, and how I wanted to do what I wanted to do. You look at the universities, the colleges, you got all these guys in dresses sitting in the best places, They have their graduation hats on too. Everybody has to kowtow to them because they have the power to pass you or flunk you. And, people like the praise, part of the human condition. So am I going to trust somebody and put my eternity or lack of eternity on it that has prejudice? So when I acknowledged my failures, my imperfection, prayed to this God, forgive me, just like millions of people around the world have, that is repeatable. Now, also, though, and you'll say, well, it can't happen in a laboratory. Well, yes, because not everybody is truly going to believe. So if you don't believe, you've got 20 people, what, you're going to separate them in groups because then, you got to have your test sample. So one sample, you're just going to throw water on them. The second sample is going to have holy water. So scientifically, if that, the people with the holy water are going to, have that. No, come on, guys. We can have examinations in the field. We can see that these things were predicted. They were not copied from other people. Nobody in history that this God is going to love you so much, he's going to give you salvation. He will make you his child, his part of his people. No, everybody else is a work base. You're good enough. Here's God up here. And if Dan is good enough, he does all these nice little works. He'll climb a ladder and get up to God, and then God has to accept him. How can God reject me when I'm such a good person? That is the other gospel, the works gospel. You have the other side where the Bible teaches pretty clearly, and I'll debate anybody that wants to on that, is the part that we have people that, like myself, is that God is perfect. I'm imperfect. No way imperfection is going to be able to mingle with perfection, or perfection will go away. And then that our creator, the God of the universe, is going to be imperfect also. So, and that's not going to happen because he's a perfect creator, or we're all in trouble. And that, again, that's not scientific, because all that science can tell us is that there's a need. The easiest, the best cause for what we see is an intelligent creator. That's all that science can tell us, and we can use information, we can use evidence to tell us like that, just like the video we saw. Now, when I put in scripture verses, or I put in my belief in a personal savior because the evidence I have is inside me, then at that case, that goes beyond the science. But to give us okay, come on, you're gonna help. She just was outside, so she's going to come in and get some love. And just like this, and so we looked into the cell, but look into a creature, all the complexity of this stupid dog. Are you a stupid dog? No. Is that we can say, oh, yeah, it's got ears. I've got ears, so we must be related. She has an appetite. I have an appetite. And so we go through that. And so a lot of the scientific evidence that we all came from pond scum is comparing features. And we know, we can compare things. You look at a mountain formation. They have openings, a lot of them like archways. Now, that's not man-made, so we're not going to go man-made. Then, though, you can look at the mouth of certain creatures, and what it is, it has an archway to it. It's an entrance. Some of those funny-looking fish, some funny-looking people. So obviously, a mountain cave and a mouth shaped like that have to be related. So, not to mention, so I won't go into the design thing, even though it was started by an atheist evolutionist comparing cars, automobiles to godless evolution. So, I'm here because I care about people. I look at the evidence. I look at the complex design. So everything from science in the subatomic level into the small atoms, small microscopic, whether it's a creature or parts of creatures, it is totally complex. So we have what caused that? Chance, or was it designed? Was it intelligence behind that? And that's why, I won't argue with people. I will tell them that God says you're a fool. But then if there's no God, who cares? No foul, no harm, no foul. If your feelings get hurt and there's no God, oh well, you're not the strongest of our species, and somebody should take you out because you're not going to be the fittest, right? I digress here because I like to, again, see the design. What if there is no creator? What if this is all chance? Then you being alive right now because somebody doesn't take you out because they like your stuff is, again, just chance. And we see that in society. Is that an evil if somebody takes you out? And especially on all sides, and we always like to use the bad guys of World War II, but if they won the war, the civilization's morals would be their standard. Right, the wrong are subjective then. So then it's who's on top. In China right now, it's immoral to go against the government. Therefore, if I'm in China, I'm going to follow their morals, because if I start protesting, I'm probably not going to be in a good place. Therefore, you'd have to say, but that's okay because that's their moral standard. That makes no sense. That's irrational. If the people who started World War II, or at least that we call the evil people of World War II for what they did, would be the good people if they won, and we'd be the bad people. No, that doesn't make sense. You put people in ovens, it doesn't matter. You're not good. That is something inside us we can say. Not because I came from a herd, not because I came from a tribe, because then again, if you say that we've evolved from tribes, that even makes them more better. That makes them whatever that makes them. It makes them not wrong because that's their tribe. Who am I to say my tribe's better than their tribe because I think you should not kill people? And their tribe says, hey, no problem with torching people, taking their stuff, taking their land, justifying it on any manner. So this is your problem then farther too, on creation, evolution, and the debate. And again, if I'm wrong, oh well, I might make some people mad, but hey, toughen up, Buttercup. Survival of the fittest. And I don't care about your tribe. The only reason I would love you is because outside of myself, something from outside of myself says I should love you. Because why? Why should I care about you if you're not benefiting me? If there is no God. I'll get some more people. So I got that out there. I think I got them. Sorry, I'm looking at comments at the same time. Nobody's commenting. That's fine. I came on late because of my son's birthday party he went to. Little friend, and it was hasn't seen him for a while. But cool. I just wanted a short one today. It's already 45 minutes. But check it out. If you came late, the DNA repair mechanisms, little protein machines. Again, the protein, the information, and we know it's information now because we can get into the DNA strands and know that this section is for, let's say, creating arms, legs, whatever. This section is for creating proteins that'll repair the DNA if the DNA is going to try to give you 6 fingers, if it's going to try to give you some defects. And as the video showed, there's tons of them per day that have to be repaired. So how did that, again, chicken and the egg, guys? To me, the cause of that has to be intelligence, because it is so complex. And plus, it's mathematically, how do you have DNA that has the information to create stuff that actually builds it? Because even complex is that proteins actually build DNA. So, but the information from the DNA is what builds the proteins, but the proteins build the DNA that has the, come on, guys, you can see that is not rational. So you'll have to say, oh, well, it's Darwin of the gaps. Scientists will figure it out. But then I'll tell you, like, well, is science totally true? No, science is just information. Science is discovery. So science is not even something that will be able to tell us something. Science just gets information, discoveries, and then intelligence interprets that in the easiest, best, most rational way. And so anyway, that's all I had for tonight. And of course, I was able to babble it on. My son calls me a babuchino, something like that. He's got it down. He might not live to be 13 if he keeps calling me those things, but I can't do anything because he's a little mini me. I was obnoxious as a kid seeing him. No, love him to death. He's so much fun watching him grow, watching him learn this information, watching him analyze stuff and come up with stuff that is just incredibly complex. And if a little brain of a stupid little kid, no, he's a smart kid, but of a 12-year-old who hasn't had drugs, hasn't had, a bad upbringing, hasn't had abuse, you're like, oh, Dan, you shelter your son too much. Yes, he's my big treasure I have right now. More than anything else is my son. And I have got the awesome responsibility at least to get him to 18 without corrupting him. And as we know, there's things out there to corrupt all of us. There's things that all of us, I believe, and you can comment or give me a communication one time that you haven't had something that you'd say, well, that kind of corrupted me. I would have rather not done that. I would rather not have followed the gang. I would rather not gone under peer pressure and done stuff that hurt other people, hurt other things, hurt myself. And we're in a time in society that it's okay. Oh, well, they're adults. No, guys. That could like get me going, but is like, oh, it's all right to pop out kids and either kill them before they get born. Different individual human beings with different DNAs. It's all right to terminate them if you don't feel like raising them. Or once they get going, you can divorce. I had 2 wives divorce me. My daughters verbally, and it's not like, woohoo, I'm ready for a Nobel Prize that divorce hurts children. So yes, you're an adult, but once you have kids, dudes, you're hurting them. I hurt my kids because of the relationship. And not that I don't know what I could have done, because I would have never divorced, but it's problem, dudes. And even if we don't divorce, even if I would have stayed in those, or like with Philip, I get mad at him sometimes because I'm frustrated. And just today we had communion at church. Part of communion is confessing that we need God, that Jesus, the body and the blood shed on the cross, is what forgives our sins when we confess him. And it was fun today. Communion, Philip was there, and like, again, he's like spaced out on something. Like, okay, you're going to take this communion thing, it's serious, and you have sins, to confess. And oh yeah, and it's like, okay, but I'm seriously, because I know dad has to ask for forgiveness for being short with my son, being impatient with my wife, with the people around me. It's a serious thing. It's a serious belief. It's a serious God. I believe that I have eternal. I'm held from the time I called on his name for salvation. He is not going to, unlike human parents, he is not going to reject his children and eternal security. But it doesn't mean that he's not going to take me to the woodshed if I go out and sin. There's an example in 1 Corinthians where a guy was having a relationship with his stepmother. And so Paul said, deliver that one. Don't accept that behavior. Not even recognized in this community, but even the Roman community, that wasn't a good thing. But he said, deliver him to Satan, that even though his body might be destroyed, he may be saved in eternity. The delivering of the body to save the soul. And so God is loving. He is forgiving. He is the perfect Father. You can make excuses, like Roman said. It's like, oh, well, this or that or the other thing. Do you know the context? Anyway, that is under an hour. I'm going to get out of under an hour. Thanks so much. It seems like there's more questions, but I'm not, or more comments, but I'm not seeing it. Ms. Mod. Hi. Oh, I know what all the comments was, because I gave the link, and on this thing it repeats a lot. So about 5 of the things on my comments was just that link. So God bless everybody, and be kind to each other. Why? Either because God loved you first, or you're an idiot, really, or you want something. Why should I be kind to somebody? Anyway, that's back to my other thing of if there's no God. So the 2 causes is the complexity. Good night. Good night. Missing Mod. I gotta make sure, because Missing Mod has great monologues on her shows. Great, whatever that meant. I'm sorry, I'm reading comments again. But Missing Mod has great commentaries from the heart. Of course, I don't agree with it when she's, chastising me, because I never need chastising. With responsibility, with being a child of God, we are we are imperfect. And I think you, Missing Mom, because Steph, you do, and you're one of the people that I trust when you tell me something, it's really heartfelt. Now then, and I'm going to think about it. Not that I'm going to agree with you, because I'm a stubborn old guy, but I'm going to think about it. It's not going to be a hater that they're just trying to do it to get me down. Stefan, I know you go through the same thing, and I apologize when I got told again by a friend, unrelated, don't do texting. Don't do text when you have something serious. Only do short things like, yeah, see you later, good night. But where people cannot see so many times like, oh, you sound mad. It's like, oh, no, I'm not mad. I'm just expressing text, and it is not related to feelings. And that's really not good. And I apologize for that, Steph, but and anybody else, because if there is no God, again, it doesn't matter. Where I believe there's a God, an eternity, I want to try to reflect that in my life. And of course, everybody knows me. I'm not perfect at it, but hey, that's a novel prediction in the Bible, is that if you're a true believer in God, will you will listen to the Holy Spirit in you. That little nice. Hopefully, you're going to listen to the nice little slap, like, "Hey, Dan, why are you doing that, Dan? That's not a loving thing." And sometimes, and it says, there is a still small voice that will coach you and will guide you if you ask for it. So thank you, everybody. God bless everybody's night, and we'll see you another day. Hopefully earlier. Sorry, like I said, I already said it. I don't have to apologize again, I hope. See you guys next week, hopefully at 3, and we will be out. God bless everybody. I just love all my friends, even though they might think I'm mad at them all the time. But here we go. We're out of here. End this thing. Oh, didn't plan it very well. There we go. Again, God bless all you guys.